Hello friends, welcome to Fastcuts, a movie which is bold, with an incomparable storyline, frightening jump scares, and just an all-around pleasure to watch which gets more interesting as it goes through. How about that? Black Christmas is a 2019 American slasher film directed by Sofia Takal and written by Takal and April Wolfe. The movie starts with the scene of a few people in coats looking at the statue of Calvin Hawthorne, founder of a college, and suddenly the building engulfs in fire. In the next scene, we can see a Christmas Eve party in a house enjoyed by a few girls. A girl named Una came into the room with a cake and asked where Lindsay is. They replied that she might be in the library. Una contacted Lindsay on her phone while she was walking and asked whether or not she is coming to the party. Lindsay replied that she has to see her granny tomorrow and told Una to enjoy the party. While Lindsay was continuing her walk, someone started following her, and she got a message in her phone from a profile of Calvin Hawthorne. She looked back and the person following her was typing something. She doubted that the same person messaged her. She was getting more messages while walking very fast. She was a little frightened. She turned back and shouted at him. Then he went to the side road and vanished. She was continuing her walking and suddenly another man in a coat appeared in front of her. Lindsay turned back and started running while he was following her. She saw a house nearby and knocked on the door for shelter, but nobody opened it. While she turned back, the stalker vanished. Lindsay tried to contact Una, but she was at Christmas celebrations and had not heard the phone ringing. The stalker was hiding behind, and while Lindsay started to walk again, he followed her. She saw him and was frightened and fell. She got a stick in her hand, and while trying to beat him with the stick, he vanished again. Lindsay got up and ran toward another house asking for help. The door was opened, but it was the stalker who opened the door. She pleaded not to hurt her, but he killed her with a sharp piece of ice. Here we can see the title, Black Christmas. In the next scene, we can see a cat waking up a girl named Riley. After getting herself refreshed, she came out. From the appearance, we can make out it's a girl's hostel. Then a girl played a video and asked Riley whether she is there in the video. She replied yes. They were discussing the video and reached the kitchen. Then Riley planted a hair clip on that girl's hair and told her it is a Christmas gift. Another girl, Jessie, was watching all these and told Riley that the clip was given to her by Jessie. Riley walked away with a smile. Then Jessie showed a new dress to Riley and told her that it is a gift for her. Riley replied to her that she won't use such a type of dress. Jessie was describing more about the specialties of that dress and hung it on a stand, telling her to wear it if she likes it. The next morning, Riley walked from the hostel to reach the college. The professor was describing a story to the students, but Riley was not listening, and she was thinking of something else. She was unable to explain what the story was when asked by the professor. The professor was explaining the story again, and he was also looking at Riley in between. He wished everyone Merry Christmas and winds up his class. Chris was requesting everybody to sign in the petition against Professor Gelson. Riley and her friend were coming out. Chris told them that they have received 50 signatures in the petition against the professor and they will win. Then they went for coffee. Riley was making coffee and Chris was telling them that the professor is a pervert. One boy was listening to their talk. He was watching Riley also. Then he came to them and told them that he will also sign the petition against the professor. After signing, he went out. Riley went behind him and looked at him. He also looked back and both of them smiled. Then another boy came there and informed them that Brian will also be there for the party tonight. Riley was feeling bad, and Chris was saying that Brian should be in jail after doing this much to Riley. Chris poured some water on his face and asked him to warn Brian to keep some distance from Riley. When he left, others were trying to pacify Riley. Riley reached the college block where the party was being held. She entered the room. Her friends were getting ready for the programs. Marty asked her boyfriend Nate to take their photos. Riley asked them where Helen is, and they replied that she was vomiting somewhere outside. Then Riley told them that she will go out and search for Helen. A photo of Brian was hanging on the walls, and Riley looked at it for some time and then went out in search of Helen. She heard a sound and opened a door to see some people in suits forcing one person to take an oath in front of the statue of Calvin Hawthorne. She closed the room slowly. The stain on the door spread on her arm also, but without bothering that, she opened the next door. She saw Phil and Helen kissing there. Riley asked Helen whether she's going to be in the program and told her to hurry up. Phil went out after telling them that Brian would not have to do anything as she said. Helen was feeling lousy and vomited. Helen was telling Riley that Phil is not so good and all. She was boozed up so heavily, and hence Riley told her to go home and take a rest and not to attend the party. Riley returned to the room, and her friends asked her about Helen. She told them that Helen went home to take a rest and she is not well after handing over her dress. They were saying that they got a new person to sing, but Riley was not ready and told them that she won't come to the stage. Chris was compelling Riley, and at last, she consented. The girls were performing on the stage. Some people were there to watch the program. Brian was also in between them. Riley was a little frightened when she saw him, and she was not able to continue the dance. Her friends covered Riley and continued to dance. Brian was happy to see the difficulty of Riley. Suddenly, Riley came forward and started performing well. The lyrics in her song was a reply to Brian, who spoiled her life. Except for Brian, the audience accepted her song with cheers. When they were coming out off the stage, Riley was telling others that Brian will think twice before raping anybody else in the future. When they came out, the boy they met in the coffee shop came there and told Riley that he saw their program, appreciated her, and told her his name is Landon. Jessie took out a bottle and asked Riley for company. Though she was reluctant, Jessie compelled her and made up her mind. Riley invited Landon also to join the party. In the meantime, Helen was packing everything to go home. In between, she went out to vomit. After getting fresh, Helen continued her packing. Then she got a message on her phone from a profile of a statue. She was wondering and heard a sound outside. She opened the door, but nobody was there. But a masked man was standing just behind her in the room. Riley had a dream of whatever Brian had done to her earlier, and she got up. When she checked the phone, she saw the message from Una telling her that Lindsay has not yet reached home, as informed by her granny. Then her friend Franny came there and appreciated her courage in telling Brian about his wrongdoings. Everyone was busy packing their belongings in the hostel. Riley came down with a cat in her hand and went out in a car. Franny was alone in the hostel, and she was searching for her cat in every room. She saw her cat in a room and went to take it. Suddenly, somebody pulled her back with a rope on her neck. While Riley and her friends selected Christmas trees in a yard, she got a message from a profile of the statue asking her about the celebration that night. Riley thought it is Landon and asked so in her reply. She got confused when she was asked to guess the next message she received. Then Riley got a phone call from an unknown number. It was Helen's mother, and she asked Riley whether she knows where Helen is, as she had not reached home. Riley replied that she will search for Helen when she returns, as she's outside at the time. Riley and friends reached the hostel with the Christmas tree. Riley went to Helen's room in search of her. Since Helen was not seen there, she called up, but not attended by Helen. Riley text messaged her to contact her mother immediately. Then Riley came out of that room and informed her friends that Helen is missing since last night, and the security guard should be informed about this. But her friends were saying that it is not necessary, as she had more liquor last night and might be sleeping somewhere or taking a different train to go home. In the next scene, we can see Riley going out alone, walking. We also can see Franny lying on the terrace, killed by someone. While Riley was walking, she got a message from the statue profile saying that he is also there at her place. She got frightened a little and walked faster. Riley reached the library in search of Helen, and she saw Landon coming out. She asked him whether he had messaged her, and in reply, he said he is not on social media. He also said he may start one if she likes it. Landon left the place after telling her to meet at night. Riley filed a complaint in the police station saying that Helen is missing since last night. The police officer was saying that she might have gone on a trip, as it is a vacation. Riley assured him that she won't go anywhere without informing anybody. She also informed the policeman about messages she receives from a profile named Calvin Hawthorne. She had seen people worshiping Calvin Hawthorne, and Brian was also in the group. Then the policeman checked all messages on her phone and asked her who is Landon. She replied that Landon is her friend, and she messaged him like this, thinking he had messaged her from the statue profile, but it was not him. Riley and the policeman went to the block where the party had been conducted the previous night. They knocked on the door a few times, but no response. Then the policeman told Riley that Helen might have gone on a trip, and they can expect her to be back by tomorrow. Then Riley asked him about the messages she received. The policeman told her that they might have sent it to frighten her, as she had made fun of them. Then the policeman left the place in his car. Riley was not convinced, and she was looking inside the building through an open window and rang up Helen, expecting the phone to ring. Suddenly an arm came to her shoulders, and she was frightened. It was her professor. He told her that he misplaced something there and that he was taking his files, which fell on the floor. She saw a paper on which her name and her friend's name were written. He told her that he's having the key to the room, and while walking to the open room, he told her about last night's program. He told her that Chris had posted the dance video on YouTube, and hence he could see that. Riley was astonished to know that Chris had taken a video of the dance program. He opened the door and asked her to get into the room. She went away from that place suddenly and reached the hostel. Everybody was getting ready for Christmas programs in the hostel. Riley asked Chris whether she had posted the dance video on YouTube, and Chris said yes. Jessie said she will bring bulbs for decoration. Chris was justifying her intention in posting the dance video. Chris told Riley that she will cut that part in which they were mentioning Brian will not repeat his rapes. But Riley was telling her that more than 50,000 people had already watched the video. Riley also told her that the video will make Brian and his friends revengeful, and they will do anything. Jessie went upstairs with a bottle in her hand and entered a room where old items were placed. It was dark in the room. She started examining the bulbs one by one, but none were working. The last bulb lighted and she screams in terror, seeing the masked man sitting next to her. Riley and Chris were justifying and arguing with each other. Riley told Chris that Brian and friends are very powerful, but Chris and Marty were abusing all boys. Nate was listening to all this, and he did not like them abusing all boys and started arguing with them. Suddenly, a message came to the phones of Chris and Marty. An arrow broke the bulb when they were about to discuss the message. Arrows were coming, and one of the arrows hit the legs of Marty, and she cried in pain. A masked man was approaching them at that time. They ran to escape from his attack to hide in a room. Marty was asking, "Who is that?" But she's not getting any answers. They have planned to call the police, but the masked man took their phones and switched off the lights. Riley came out with a stick in her hand to take her phone, which fell. When she heard the sound of the man coming, she hides in a room. He went to another room. Then Chris and Marty thought of Jessie, who went to take bulbs and went to the dark room in search of Jessie. They saw Jessie sitting on a chair, and a close look realized that she was killed and stunned. Riley was hiding behind a sofa, and Nate asked her where Chris is, as he wanted to apologize to her. Riley told him not to make a sound, but he was not listening. On hearing the sound, the masked man reached there and killed Nate with an arrow. Then he started to beat Riley, and she was screaming, resisting him. When his attention got diverted, Riley pierced his throat with a big key to kill him. Chris and Marty came and told Riley that Jessie has been killed. Marty saw Nate being killed and started sobbing near him. Riley started to remove the mask of the man killed by her, but another masked man appeared in front of them, and they ran to escape from him. Marty had the phone of Nate, and while they were climbing the ladder, another masked man came in front of them. Marty was saying that she informed the police, but the masked man attacked her and killed Marty. Chris and Riley ran again to escape and hide in a place. Chris also had a knife with her. A phone call was received at the police station from the hostel seeking help, and a policeman took his vehicle and drove to the hostel. Then the masked man entered the room in which Riley and Chris were hiding. When they started to escape from there, he jumped from the table and tried to kill Chris. Riley stabbed with her knife. When he turned, Chris also stabbed him, and both of them killed that masked man. When the policeman opened the door, he saw Una and friends killing one person. One person approached the policeman from the back and killed him. Riley was wondering why blood is not coming out of his body and removed his mask to identify him as a DKO pledge she saw at the ritual earlier and informed Chris of this. Chris told Riley to inform the police station immediately and went to take the key from the assailant killed by Riley. Another masked man was approaching, and Riley realized that the stain on his forehead is the same as she had seen on the doors of the block where the ritual was convened. Suddenly, she heard the cries of Chris and went there running. The masked man was trying to kill Chris. Riley covered his face with a bag to stop his breath. In the meantime, Chris took the key and ran out to open the car. Suddenly, they escaped in Nate's car, and the assailant was using his arrows to attack them. Riley theorizes that Hawthorne, who was known for practicing black magic, is responsible for the murders via his bust, which emits black liquid. Chris suggests they go to the police, but Riley demands they go to the fraternity, and the two argue for some time. Riley theorizes that Hawthorne, who was known for practicing black magic, is responsible for the murders via his bust, which emits black liquid. Chris suggests that they go to the police, but Riley demands they go to the fraternity, and the two argue for some time. Riley went out of the car and walked towards the fraternity with a crowbar in her hand. Landon was coming from the opposite side and asked her about the party in the hostel, but she has not replied. Landon realized something was wrong and asked Riley if she needed any help. She said yes if he could. Chris was driving and saw a police vehicle in front of Una's hostel and stopped her car. Suddenly, Una and friends came and entered the car and asked her to take the vehicle quickly. One masked man was standing behind them and Chris drove the car very fast. Riley and Landon reached the party block and Landon went inside. He saw his music system was broken by somebody and got angry and started breaking everything in front of him. Riley was watching this. Then a few masked men came to Landon and asked him what his problem is. Riley took this chance to get inside. Another man came behind Landon at this time, and while looking at him, Landon was feeling a severe headache. Riley entered the room intending to break the Hawthorne statue and heard the sound for help. She looked there and it was Helen who was missing. While Riley was untying Helen, somebody came behind Riley. Then Helen started laughing and Riley was wondering about seeing this. Suddenly, Riley was beaten by that man and she became unconscious. After some time, when Riley opened her eyes, she saw Landon was taking her into their group. Riley was tied on a chair. Their boss approached Riley. She was surprised to see their professor as the boss. She asked him what happened to Landon. He replied that he became ready to join their group. Then he started describing what's going on there. He told her that the founder of the college, Calvin Hawthorne, was a big magician, and that they are taking his power through ritual in front of that statue. If somebody objects or is made fun of, they will be killed. That was their motto. Helen was compelling Riley to join the group, saying that she will get the power once she worships the statue. Riley was not agreeing to do this and abused Helen for cheating and leading her friends to death. Brian untied Riley and compelled her to join the group, but in vain. They saw the killer coming and Helen was looking at the things around the statue only to see a locket with her name there and asked who kept it there. Helen was killed and the frightened Riley stood on her knees. Brian was happy to see Riley on her knees and said, "Male dominates the world." The killer turned to Riley, and when he was about to kill her, an arrow came and killed him. When Riley looked who saved her, it was Chris and Landon. Then there started a battle and Brian was killed by Riley. Riley managed to break the statue and the members started dying one by one. Chris set ablaze the professor. They locked the building with all the members inside. And while walking out, we can see the building engulfed in the fire, leaving them to death. The movie ends there, and it was a fun and engaging thriller, more specifically, a seat-edge thriller. And if you like our video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We will come with another video soon. Until then, goodbye.